Red sweater. Are you no longer having suicidal thoughts? No. I understand that it's not my fault for what happened, Albina answered, trying to hide the lie behind the confidence in her voice. Fine. Tell me about your dreams. Try to describe everything in the smallest detail. The woman lay on the couch and tightly hugged the pillow. She struggled to remember the details, but it was hard for her. I don't know exactly how to describe it. The most distinct thing I remember is how he comes up and puts his hand on my shoulder. I turn around, but his face seems to be blurry. This is a man. Do I understand you correctly? The psychologist asked, wearily rubbing his temples, already affected by early gray hair. Yes. Seems to be yes. How is he dressed? He's wearing a red sweater. Albina's head began to hurt badly from the surging memories. I don't know, I can't do it anymore. Fine. It's enough for today. Let's continue next time, the psychotherapist concluded and got up from his chair. The session was over. Tell me, is there a chance that the memories will return? Albina asked with undisguised fear and hope in her voice. Each patient is different, but recovery can occur. This is the natural nature of memory recovery. And the memories themselves come periodically, without a clear time frame, the doctor replied. Thanking the psychotherapist for his help, Albina took her purse and soon left the clinic building. She remembered her entire life before the accident, even the name of her first elementary school teacher. Only the memories of a few months before the car accident were erased. It was after her that the woman was taken to the hospital with a serious head injury. Albina was diagnosed with an internal hematoma, and she needed a craniotomy, which led to partial amnesia. After the operation, the woman fell into a coma. For 3 months she was balancing between life and death, but she managed to survive. When Albina came to herself, she could not move, did not see anything and did not speak. Her husband replaced her nurse and masseuse. He kept telling her that, everything will be fine and we will get through this together. Together. The care of her husband created a real miracle. 5 years later, Albina returned to normal life. The only thing that now reminded her of that accident was a scar hidden under the hair on the woman's head and an insane sense of guilt. On that fateful evening on the eve of the accident, she and her husband had a big fight at a party with friends. Albina flared up and got behind the wheel drunk. Her husband, Alexei, tried to dissuade his wife from going in such a state, but she did not listen to him. At dusk, the woman did not notice the girl crossing the road. The track was unlit and deserted, there was no crossing in that place either. After the collision, Albina lost control of the car and flew into a ditch. In a state of passion, the woman got out of the crumpled car and walked all the way to the house. She walked almost 5 kilometers. And only after crossing the threshold of the apartment, she lost consciousness. The girl who was shot down by Albina was much less fortunate. She died from the blow even before the ambulance arrived. And although Albina was found not guilty, the woman still considered herself a murderer. She was afraid and at the same time wanted to remember all the details of the accident, but could not. Her guilt was so strong that not so long ago Albina attempted suicide by swallowing pills. She was lucky that her mother-in-law had brought children from a walk-in, seeing that Albina was unconscious, called an ambulance. This golden woman almost completely shouldered the upbringing of her grandchildren while Albina was recovering from the accident. Albina loved her children very much, but she was ashamed to look into their eyes. After all, sooner or later they will grow up and realize that their mother is a killer. They're probably better off without her. Recently, terrible dreams have been added to everything else. In every dream, a man in a red sweater approached the woman from behind, put his hand on her shoulder, and then, fear and darkness. These night visions haunted Albina and now she dreamed more and more often, almost every night. After a morning session with a psychotherapist, Albina went to her mother-in-law to pick up her children. When she opened the door of the apartment, she was dumbfounded and could not utter a word. Albina's eldest son stood in the hallway and smiled. "Mother, look what I found at Grandma's. Can I take it for myself? I'm like Spider-Man. He had the same one." The boy was wearing the same red sweater from Albina's dreams. She was sure of it. "Where did you get it?" the woman asked, trying not to show her emotions. "I found it in my grandmother's closet. She went to the store for chips. He will come soon." The boy laughed and ran back into the room. Albina was left alone in the hallway. Head spinning, thoughts confused. It was as if platinum had broken through her mind. She remembered. "I remembered everything. All the events of that terrible evening. How she took her husband's forgotten phone on the table and saw a message from his mistress on it. How she opened the folder with their correspondence and how drunk Alexei justified himself. How they fought and she threatened him with divorce. How her husband forced her into the car and began to drive along the road at breakneck speed. As headlights illuminated the pale face of a frightened girl. As the husband sharply turned the steering wheel to the right, and the car turned over. How did they get out of the car? How he begged her to say that Albina was driving, because there is a lot of alcohol in his blood and now he's definitely in prison, and she won't be. As Albina flatly refused to lie about the accident. How Alexei, having heard about his wife's decision, began to strike her blow after blow. How Albina managed to escape from him and catch a ride. Albina remembered everything. Mother-in-law returned from the store. "Hi dear. Have you already arrived? And I'm here. Why are you so pale?" "Yes, my head is spinning," Albina muttered, trying to come to her senses. At the sound of his grandmother's voice, the son again ran into the hallway, still in the same red sweater. "Grandma, can I take this sweater for myself?" "Yes, of course, take it," the mother-in-law smiled. "These are the folders of your sweater. I've been idle for a long time." Albina thanked the woman for sitting with the boys in her absence, and took the guys home. Alexei worked on a scheduled day after 2, and that night he was supposed to be at work. Usually Albina missed her husband on such days, but not today. After putting the children to bed, she thought about what to do next. So that's where all his concern comes from. Guilt. Or the fear that I will remember everything. Thoughts in Albina's head were like a swarm of bees. Her closest person turned out to be a traitor. He saw how his wife burned with guilt, but was silent. The stream of terrible thoughts was interrupted by a phone call from the mother-in-law. She asked Albina to come to her tomorrow for a serious conversation, when the children were in the garden. She begged not to do stupid things and give her a chance to justify her son. Apparently, today, Albina's face, Alexei's mother realized that the memories had returned. Albina agreed to the conversation. She was indebted to this golden woman and could not refuse her. Did the mother-in-law know that her son put all the blame on Albina? What version did Alexei tell her? Maybe she doesn't know the whole truth about her son. All these questions did not let the girl go to bed that night. Morning has come. Albina took the children to kindergarten and went straight to her mother-in-law. Anna Mikhailovna had already put the kettle on and was waiting for her daughter-in-law. Having poured tea into a large mug with poppies, she gave it to Albina with the words, "Sit down. Drink tea, the story will be long." The elderly woman sighed sadly and began to describe the events of that night. The mother-in-law's words fully confirmed Albina's recent memories. Albina listened to her interlocutor and looked at the cup. She did not want to drink tea at all. Suddenly, the young woman noticed a tiny yellow piece stuck to the wall of the cup. Tablet shell. The same method was used by doctors in the clinic where Albina ended up after an unsuccessful suicide attempt. When patients refused to take pills, the medicine was crushed and sprinkled into tea or food. Sedative. Or not. Albina asked her mother-in-law to give her something for tea. When she turned away, the daughter-in-law poured half the contents of the mug into the flower on the windowsill. Something you or again some kind of pale. Are you not well? Sarcastic notes appeared in the unctuous voice of the mother-in-law. Yes, my head is spinning a little, Albina lied. This is just the beginning. The mother-in-law's face changed. Soon you will completely pass out, and the doctors who have arrived will not be able to do anything. Suicidal. I took the pills again. That evening you came running to me in tears. Like, Alyosha knocked down a woman, and you are also correct. Did you seriously think that I would let you put your own son in jail? Stupid. On the night of the accident, while you were whining, I came up behind you and hit the back of your head with a rolling pin. And then again. I would have smashed your head in general, but Lyasha came. Interceded. I love her, don't. Anna Mikhailovna mimicked her son. I took you to the hospital right away. Brat. But everything turned out for the best. I made up a good story, huh? All your bruises were chalked up to collision injuries. At first, my son wanted to confess everything, but I dissuaded him. Children need a father. He suffered a lot then. After all, when I saw your face yesterday, I immediately realized that I remembered the accident. But since she wasn't scared of me, it means she didn't remember the main thing, how I hit you with a rolling pin. I was wearing that sweater that day. I should have thrown the hell out of him. Oh, you bitch. Albina no longer wanted to play dying. The shock of hearing the story was replaced by rage. What? The mother-in-law was taken aback. But tea, you should have. I poured out your tea, mother, the girl answered coldly. The triumph on Anna Mikhailovna's face instantly changed to an expression of fear, and then anger. She grabbed a knife and rushed at her daughter-in-law. A struggle ensued between the women, in which the advantage was clearly not on the side of the elderly Anna Mikhailovna. With a little effort, Albina knocked out the knife from her mother-in-law and pushed her into the bathroom, closing the door on the other side. And then she called the police. Albina divorced her husband and changed her last name. Immediately after the divorce, the woman moved to another city with her children and tried never to remember this story again.